The Irian, if I am pronouncing that correctly, is a Tier 7 premium Pan-Asian cruiser. And much like the Dido we covered yesterday, it's available for pinatitas, the August 2025 temporary event currency, in the store. It's the third item in a sequential bundle. The first two items of that bundle are a pinata crate and some insignias. I've already purchased those two bundles for pinatitas, and I cannot for the life of me remember the cost. But I can tell you that after you purchase those two bundles, the Irian itself costs 10,000 pinatitas. And depending on the cost of those two preceding bundles, we know from our research yesterday for the Dido video that you can get up to 14,750 pinatitas for free. I don't think that'll be enough to buy the two preceding bundles on this chain and then get the Irian without spending any money to get more of the pinatitas. So you'll probably have to pay some real money if you do want to go after that ship. This ship, I should say. The question is, would that be worth it? And the answer is your mileage will vary, but I'll tell you what I think of the ship. And as usual, we'll run down the stats, and I'll put my commander build on the screen here because, of course, he's going to be affecting some of the stats. It's Chen, the Pan-Asian cruiser commander, free to play, and the inspirations are Mikawa and Swirsky for more concealment. And while we run down the stats, let's start with the concealment stat because that is by far the highlight of this ship. And in my opinion, this concealment is absolute unhinged absurdity. I don't know why it's allowed to be this low. But with the concealment module and a high-level Mikawa and Swirsky as inspirations on the commander, we have an 8-kilometer detectability by sea. I haven't looked through the entire game, but I think 8-kilometer detectability by sea has to be one of the best, if not the best detectabilities for any cruiser at the tier. The only things that maybe rival that would be the heavy French cruisers, which also have absurd concealment for reasons I don't know. They certainly have more armor than this thing. If you're going to put absurd concealment on anything, it would probably be something like a copy-paste Kutuzov hull. Because that's what this thing is. It's a Kutuzov. I think it's the third one in the game, following the regular Kutuzov and the Pozarsky. But the difference between those two things and this thing is that they both have smoke screens of some kind. The Irian has no smoke screen whatsoever. It does have a number of consumables, though. We've got a sonar with a 5-kilometer ship detection range, so that's kind of nice. We've got a conventional cruiser repair party. And then we've got the torpedo reload booster. And that'll be the other thing that differentiates the Irian from the two other copy-paste Kutuzovs. This thing has deep water torpedoes, and it's got 2 torpedo launchers, one on either side of the ship. They both launch 5 torpedoes, so if you flip around, you can get 10 in the water at one time. And then if you deploy the torpedo reload booster, which has a long cooldown time, over 5 minutes, then you can get up to 20 torpedoes in the water at once. And these things have a range of 14.6 kilometers. That's with Chen. I think one of his skills increases torpedo range, so it might be 14 km or maybe 13.5 at base, but still very long range, especially when your detectability is 8 kilometers. And despite the relatively mild hit there against the Bismarck, the damage that these torpedoes do is pretty good. It's a maximum of 18,437. They go at 69 knots. Very nice number there. And being deep water torpedoes, they can't hit destroyers, but they can hit everything else. And they have a detectability of 0.8 km, which means that you're not going to see them unless you're running sonar or some other anti-torpedo measure before they're right in front of your face. And if you're a battleship, that doesn't give you an awfully long time to dodge. So that's maybe the main armament on this ship when you take into account the absurd 8 km concealment. I don't know that too many other cruisers could push this far up on the flank on the estuary map, launch torpedoes in the middle at a battleship pushing through, do about 40,000 damage, and not get spotted once the entire time. that'll be down to, I suppose, us not shooting our guns, which we're not going to do for quite a while in this battle. In fact, I wanted to show you this battle because I think it's a good, clear example of just how absurd this concealment is. This isn't even the best result I got in the Irian, and I just wanted to show it to you because of the absurdity of this concealment and the positions it allows us to move into. I don't know that any other cruiser could quite pull this off. But anyway, continuing down with the stats, we've got 41,200 HP, which I think is about level with the actual Kutuzov. And our hull, from the bow to the stern, is coated in 25mm plating, so it can be overmatched by everything. And the citadel is exposed above the waterline. It runs from the very front turret to the very back. So it should be easily hittable by pretty much any enemy battleship. And this would be a cruiser that you can take down quite quickly with a battleship. Also, though, it has 27mm of deck armor, so theoretically, it can bounce 380mm guns off the deck plunging fire, but that is, well, you're not as likely to see that as 406s, which can overmatch you everywhere on the hull, so I don't know how much that really matters toward the survivability. And what I've found, and what we'll see a little bit later on in this battle, thanks to this Suzuya over here, is that if you get focused by another enemy light cruiser with good DPM, like for example the Suzuya, well, then you do tend to melt very quickly. You can restore some HP with the repair party, but I think if you're going to play this ship, you probably want to lean into the absurd concealment like we're doing in this battle. What other cruiser could push right into the enemy's spawn like we are, be, I don't know, 10, 9 kilometers away from the nearest ship, spot everything, and then launch torpedoes at the bow-tanking Vladivostok there? I don't know that there are too many cruisers who could. I suppose maybe the Tech Tree Pan-Asian cruisers. But if I'm going to shoot my guns here as a Tech Tree Pan-Asian cruiser, I might deploy a smoke screen, which would, I suppose, cut off my line of sight and blind my team to the Vladivostok, who they do seem sort of eager to shoot at. So we can sort of provide spotting with our absurd 8-kilometer concealment, just like a destroyer. In fact, you could say this is a cruiser cosplaying as a destroyer, although it does have a citadel, so it would get exposed the moment it gets exposed and a battleship shoots at it. The guns, I suppose we should talk about those. These are 12 152mm guns in triple turrets, 4 of them in total, 2 on the front, 2 on the back. They have a 15.3 kilometer range with this build, a 7.2 second reload, 23 second turret traverse, and then the HE does a maximum of 2200 with a really good 12% fire chance. And the AP, 3,300 maximum damage. As for the maneuverability, which I think is the only thing we haven't really covered, I wouldn't say it's especially great. In fact, the maneuverability, coupled with the armor scheme, I think does a lot to make this ship not super survivable. The maximum speed is 32.7 knots, which isn't slow, but by cruiser standards, it's not especially fast. The Suzuya is certainly faster than this thing. If we wanted to try to run away from the Suzuya, it could probably catch us. And then the turning circle is fairly large at 760 meters. The rudder shift is 10.3 seconds. I suppose you could build into that with some rudder shift mods, but then you'd be sacrificing this stupid concealment, so I don't know that you would want to do that. More torpedoes, by the way, against the Vladivostok. You would think with the torpedoes only having one launcher on either side and you really having to use the torpedo reload booster to get the full firepower in the water, or at least I thought initially, probably the torpedoes aren't going to come into play that often. But I find, just with the volume of firepower and the fact that the torpedoes are so stealthy, that pretty much every match I've played in this thing, I've been landing a significant number of torpedoes and probably dealing most of the damage that way. Vladivostok goes down for our first kill of the game. You can see that the AP on this thing is fairly decent at hitting cruiser citadels. The shell arcs are pretty flat, much like the Russian cruisers, because this is basically a Russian cruiser that was loaned to, I don't know what nation it was supposed to be loaned to according to the wargaming lore on this thing. China, perhaps? Who knows? Anyway, It's a Russian cruiser, so it's got those good shell ballistics. But as you can see from this Suzuya shooting at us, and keep in mind, he is the only thing that's damaging us in this sequence, well, we've lost more than half of our HP to his HE spam and fires. So you can see just how non-tanky this thing is. And on the one hand, I almost think this absurd concealment is necessary due to the squishiness of the ship. You don't have a smoke screen to fall back on, so all you've got is the concealment. On the other hand, I don't know that any cruiser in this game should really have a sub 9 kilometer detectability, maybe even sub 10 km detectability. It just seems a little bit absurd for the reasons that you've seen in this match. Again, how many other cruisers would be able to take the positions that we did in this match? I don't think too many of them, and that's all completely down to the concealment. And of course, that concealment allows you to easily disengage from engagements that aren't going your way, like ours against the Suzuya, and then reposition, live to fight another day. This battle is winding down. The enemy team only has 4 ships left alive. We've got 6 now that we just lost a vanguard to the predations of one of the remaining enemy battleships. And of course, we're going to sail back into position near the enemy base. We know that there's a battleship and a cruiser tucked over here behind these islands, so we can use our excellent concealment and destroyer bona fides to, I suppose, spot them. Maybe it's not necessary because we've got a battleship moving into the Baltimore, and he's going to do a number to the Baltimore. But, you know, maybe we can get out here and yoink that kill. Why not? There's the salvo of HE at Balti. Of course, the HE is going to pen the Baltimore's armor scheme pretty much everywhere. And he goes down. I think the Baltimore has, 27 millimeters of armor plating? So this HE, I think, may be penning 30 millimeters. I'm not 100% sure on that. I would have to test it, but judging by the 6 penetrations on the Baltimore's armor scheme, it can pen at least 27, which makes me think it can probably pen 30. The torpedoes we sent at the BA hovercraft over there, I don't think are going to hit. But we're up to 91,000 damage done now, and we are sailing into the enemy cap to contest it. It's only BA hovercraft left, and of course our old friend the Suzuya, who has done a number to our HP and is kiting away to the map border. So I don't think he's got any hope of winning. It's only a matter of moments before BA hovercraft goes down, and then it's just Suzuya, who, regardless of whether he sinks or not, we're going to be winning this match. So for my final thoughts on the Irian, I don't know if I'm right about the bundle chain sequencing there. I think if you buy the 2 preceding bundles before this thing, then you're going to have to end up spending some money to make up the difference in order to buy the 10,000 pinatitas. And if you've already went with the Dido, which I think I would recommend more, that ship is really fun to play in my opinion, and also really good for its tier. Well, if you do that, then you're going to have basically no pinatitas to throw the way of the Irian, and vice versa. You'd have to probably buy all the ones necessary in order to acquire each one of these ships if you go for the other. So I think between the 2 of them, the Dido would be my main recommendation. The Irian is certainly, it's got things going for it, namely the insane 8-kilometer concealment and really the torpedo firepower, but I don't think I'd be paying any money for this ship, you know? I wouldn't recommend it for that reason. And also, it's very squishy, so you do have to rely on this concealment to maintain your survivability. It may be perhaps a little bit more difficult of a cruiser to play if you're an inexperienced, sort of newer player to this game, whereas the Dido, of course, has the option to use smoke screens, and I feel like that's helpful, plus it's lower tier. So yeah, between the 2 of them, the Dido would be my pick. We do get revenge on the Suzuya, by the way, and we end the battle with a little less than 100,000 damage done, 92,000, and we're second on the leaderboard behind the Anchorage, which is a pretty decent cruiser. So I just wanted to show you this battle because it demonstrates the absurdity of this concealment, in my opinion, pretty well. And certainly the Irian is not a bad ship. I don't know about that concealment, though. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.